Breaking news. Today, February 6, 2026, marks a massive, just a tectonic shift in the global defense supply chain.
It really does.
We aren't just talking about a new gadget or, a software update. We are talking about a crack in a monopoly that has existed for decades.
Hmm.
The headline is this: Ukraine is officially breaking China's chokehold on the drone industry.
It's a huge development, and one that, frankly, many analysts didn't think could happen this quickly. AeroMotors, a key player within the Brave One ecosystem, has just secured $550,000 in strategic investment.
From the Swedish venture fund, Front Ventures.
That's the one.
Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You hear $550,000 and you think, that's a seed round for a coffee app in San Francisco.
It doesn't sound like a lot in the defense world.
Right. It's not war-winning money on the surface, but hold on, because you have to listen to the impact. This isn't just cash, it is rocket fuel for scaling.
Absolutely.
AeroMotors is using this funding to triple its capacity, rocketing production to 60,000 electric drone motors per month.
60,000. And to put that in perspective, for years, China has controlled roughly 98% of this global market.
98%.
That is, that's total dominance. And today, that monopoly isn't just being challenged, it's being dismantled.
Before we dive into the nuts and bolts of how they did it, and trust me, we are going to get into the technical innovations, the interceptor drones hitting 400 km/h, I want to speak directly to you, the listener.
It's important.
If you support Ukraine, if you support freedom and justice in Europe, you need to stay informed. This is where the battle lines are actually being drawn. Once, subscribe to Defense Reports right now, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports.
Absolutely. Staying informed is really the first step in understanding the reality of modern conflict.
So join me in the latest Program by Defense Report for the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover the rise of what we're calling industrial sovereignty in Ukraine.
It's a fascinating case study.
We're looking at how a garage startup is outmaneuvering a global superpower's supply chain monopoly.
It really redefines what's possible when you are under existential pressure.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to start with the problem, the why. Why is this investment such a big deal?
Well, because, frankly, until recently, if you were building a drone, didn't matter if it was for a wedding video or for the battlefield, you were effectively buying Chinese motors.
So that 98% figure is real.
Oh, it's very real. Now, in a peacetime global economy, that might just be, an efficiency statistic. You'd look at it and say, oh, they had the economies of scale.
But we're not in peacetime.
Exactly. In the context of the war in Ukraine and, rising geopolitical tensions, that statistic represents a critical vulnerability, a huge one. Western defense and Ukrainian operations have been completely reliant on a potential adversary for these critical components.
It's like trying to win a Formula One championship, but the other team is the only one who sells the engines and the tires.
Precisely. And we've seen this play out. We've seen what's called supply chain weaponization. This isn't theoretical.
No, this is happening now.
China has introduced licensing procedures, these soft bans, on the export of permanent magnets and rare earths, like dysprosium.
And just for the listeners who aren't materials scientists, why does dysprosium matter so much?
So dysprosium is what allows magnets to operate at really high temperatures without losing their magnetism.
Ah.
If you're running a high-performance motor in a combat drone, it gets hot, very hot. Without those specific rare earths, the motor just fails. This created a crisis not just for drones, but for machine tools, avionics, you name it.
The message was pretty clear then.
The message was, the supply can be cut off at any moment.
And that is where AeroMotors steps in. The story of this company is just wild. It was founded in 2023 by Andrei Tindike and Yevgenia Kliwieva.
And when you say startup, you can't picture a fancy glass office with beanbag chairs.
Not at all.
No, this is the classic garage story, but, in a war zone. The founders initially started by winding copper coils and gluing magnets by hand in a tiny workshop.
By hand?
They didn't start this to get rich. They started it because they saw the bottleneck propulsion and decided to fix it themselves. They couldn't wait for international shipments that might never even arrive.
It's that necessity-driven innovation we keep seeing. But they didn't stay in the garage for long.
No.
This pivot to industrial scale is what we're seeing today. So how do you go from hand-gluing magnets to 60,000 units a month?
That is the key differentiator here. AeroMotors moved from manual labor to a fully developed production facility. But what makes them special and what attracted the Swedish investors is their vertical integration.
What do you mean by that exactly?
Most companies in the West, and even in Ukraine previously, were just integrators. They'd buy a bell, a shaft, some bearings, and put them together.
Right, they're just assembling Lego pieces someone else made for them.
Exactly. AeroMotors decided to handle the entire cycle in-house in Ukraine. They are doing the CNC machining, the metal processing, the winding, the balancing, and all the final testing.
So they are actually cutting the metal for the shafts and the motor housings themselves.
All of it. This eliminates those fragile supply chains we just talked about. If you control the metal processing and the winding, you aren't waiting on a shipment from Shenzhen to finish your motor.
You're not held hostage by a customs delay?
Not at all.
Hmm.
And, maybe more importantly, it ensures quality control because you aren't outsourcing key stages to some third party you can't even audit.
That is huge. So let's get back to the money for a second. That $550,000 investment. In the grand scheme of defense budgets where we talk about billions, this feels microscopic.
It does sound small, but you have to look at the leverage. The deal values this startup at $10 million.
Okay, that's a significant valuation for a hardware company.
It is. But the real number to watch isn't the dollars, it's the unit output. They are moving from roughly 10,000 motors a month to 60,000 motors a month.
That's a 500% increase in capacity, just like that.
It's necessary scaling. The goal here is to meet the needs of the Ukrainian armed forces. We have to look at the consumption rates. Projections suggest Ukraine will consume upwards of 3 million FPV drones in 2025 alone.
3 million. Just let that sink in for a moment.
Yeah.
The scale of this war is hard to comprehend sometimes. That's not a fleet, that's a swarm. It's like a weather system of drones.
It is industrial warfare. And 60,000 motors a month is a significant chunk of that requirement, especially because AeroMotors isn't just making the cheap disposable motors.
No, they're making the high-performance stuff.
That's right.
Speaking of performance, let's geek out for a second on the tech. What are these motors actually doing? Because I'm seeing reports about interceptor drones, and the specs just look insane.
Well, they're producing the widest lineup in Ukraine. The range is from, say, 7-inch motors, which are used for those agile little FPVs we see in all the videos.
All the way up to 32-inch motors.
Exactly, 32 inches.
That's huge. That's like a ceiling fan. What do you even use that for?
Heavy lift cargo drones. So carrying supplies to the front lines or for strategic reconnaissance where a drone needs to stay in the air for hours and hours.
Okay, but the nugget of technology that really stands out to me is the brushless DC, the BLDC tech for these interceptor drones.
Yes.
For the listener who might not be an engineer, why does brushless matter so much here?
Well, traditional motors use these little carbon brushes to deliver current. They create friction, heat, sparks. They wear out.
Right.
A brushless DC motor is all electronically controlled. It's far more efficient, it has way more torque, and it can spin much, much faster without, melting down.
And that speed is what allows for the Octopus and Skyhunter projects, right?
Correct. These are the interceptor drones equipped with AeroMotors engines, and they are achieving speeds of up to 400 kilometers per hour.
400 kilometers per hour. That is faster than a Ferrari on a straightaway, and they're using these to hunt.
They're hunting the hunters. Their tactical use is specifically to go after enemy Shahed 136 kamikaze drones.
Oh.
The Shahids are relatively slow, maybe 180 kilometers, but they're incredibly deadly. So you need immense speed to catch them, intercept them, and destroy them before they hit a city or a power plant.
But wait, if I'm a pilot on the ground wearing goggles, and I'm controlling a drone moving at 400 kilometers, human reaction time isn't that fast. How do you actually hit something?
You're right. It is nearly impossible for a human to do that reliably in a 3D space. That is why the Skyhunter system, which, by the way, is also partially funded by Front Ventures.
Valued at around $4 million, I saw.
That's right. It uses AI to automate the final targeting.
So the pilot gets it close, and the AI takes the shot.
Exactly. And they're seeing 92% interception rates with it.
92%. That is higher than some traditional air defense missile systems that cost millions of dollars per shot.
And it is significantly cheaper. Which brings us to the economics of all this.
Yeah.
This is the part that I think really scares the traditional defense contractors.
Right, because usually when we talk about high-tech defense, we're talking about the gold-plated solution. But Ukraine seems to be rewriting the rulebook on cost.
They're operating under a totally different economic framework. And it's worth noting the government support structure here. They've created what's called the Defense City regime.
It sounds like a sci-fi movie title. Welcome to Defense City. But it's a legal framework, isn't it?
It is. As of early 2026, it's fully operational. It offers exemptions from corporate profit tax if the money is reinvested into production, zero land tax, zero property tax,
Wow.
simplified customs procedures so you aren't stuck in paperwork, and, maybe most importantly, secrecy.
Secrecy.
The registry of assets and locations is hidden from the public. This is crucial. If you list your factory address in a public business register, it becomes a target for a missile strike within days.
So the strategy is lean and decentralized.
Exactly. Instead of one massive factory that's easy to hit, you have a network of smaller facilities protected by this legal and informational shield.
So AeroMotors isn't just one giant building with the target painted on the roof?
Not at all. It's a distributed network.
Hmm.
And this efficiency, no massive corporate overhead, tax breaks, cheap production, it drives this incredible cost disparity. This is the aha moment for military economists.
Let's hear it.
A typical American tactical drone, a Switchblade or something similar, can cost upwards of $100,000.
$100,000 for something that explodes once.
Correct. Now, a comparable Ukrainian short-range drone, powered by something like an AeroMotors engine, costs around $400.
$400. You could buy 250 of them for the price of one American drone.
And that is what we call economic parity inversion. If you use a $100,000 missile to shoot down a $400 drone, you lose the economic war. You will go bankrupt.
But if you flip it...
But if you use a $400 drone to shoot down $1 million cruise missile or a $20,000 Shahed, you are winning. It's about mass-producing excellence at a price point that sustainable warfare demands.
It really highlights how the traditional military-industrial complex in the West has gotten so bloated, Ukraine is stripping it down to the essentials: speed, cost, and lethality.
It's a lesson born of survival,
Yeah.
but it's also opening doors. And this brings us to the geopolitical angle. Front Ventures isn't just bringing a checkbook.
They're bringing a passport.
Exactly. They're bringing a passport. They're looking at friendshoring. The plan is to establish production lines within Europe, specifically Sweden, and there are discussions with other NATO countries.
Friendshoring. I love that term. Basically, moving your supply chain to countries that aren't going to try and invade you.
That's the idea. And it's so smart because if you're NATO, you literally cannot buy Chinese equipment. The procurement rules forbid it.
But you need drones. Every platoon needs drones now.
A huge vacuum.
Yeah.
They need non-Chinese components. So AeroMotors is positioning itself to be that safe haven manufacturer. If they build in Sweden, they are fully compliant with NATO standards.
It secures the supply chain for Europe, not just Ukraine.
That's the larger strategic play.
But there's still one elephant in the room, or maybe a magnet in the room. We talked about the vertical integration, cutting the metal, winding the coils. But what about the raw materials for the magnets?
The Achilles heel, neodymium magnets. China controls 90% of global processing for these rare earths. You cannot build a high-performance electric motor without them.
So even if you wind the copper in Kyiv or Stockholm, if the magnet comes from China, you're still vulnerable.
That is the challenge. However, AeroMotors has a strategy here too. They are developing partnerships with mineral-rich nations outside of China to secure the raw rare earth oxides.
Bypassing the Chinese processing hubs.
Completely. And they aren't alone in this. The U.S. is freaking out about magnets too. The DoD is investing over $400 million in domestic magnet production.
Right, companies like MP Materials and Novion.
Exactly. They're aiming for total independence by 2027. So AeroMotors is part of this broader Western push to decouple from Chinese rare earths. It's a coordinated effort.
So looking ahead, we are in February 2026. What does the rest of the year look like for Ukraine's drone industry?
The ambition is staggering. Ukraine is aiming to produce 7 to 8 million drones annually by the end of 2026.
8 million drones. That is terrifying and impressive all at once.
It is a strategic layer of defense. The Ukrainian National Security and Defense Council, the NSDC, has authorized what they call the drone line strategy.
And the long-term goal for components.
Complete independence from Chinese components by 2027.
That is a very, very tight timeline. We are talking about completely re-engineering a global supply chain in roughly 12 to 18 months.
It's tight. But, I mean, given they went from a garage to 60,000 motors a month in 2 years, amidst air raid sirens and power outages, I would not bet against them.
No, I wouldn't either. They are rewriting the industrial playbook. Let's just recap this journey because it is honestly inspiring.
It really is.
We started with two founders, Andrei and Yevgenia, in a workshop. winding coils by hand because they had to.
And they identified the single biggest weakness in their supply chain, the motor, and just decided to own it.
Now they have a $10 million valuation, a 60,000 per month output, and Swedish venture capital backing them to expand into the EU.
It is the definition of how industrial sovereignty is built in wartime. It's not just about making things. It's about ensuring you have the right to make things, no matter what a blockade or a monopoly tries to dictate.
And it proves that innovation doesn't just happen in peacetime labs with endless budgets. Some of the most rapid advancements happen when your back is against the wall.
Absolutely. The defense city model, the vertical integration, the sheer speed of iteration, these are things that Western defense companies analyze for years in committees. Ukraine just did it.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
It has been a pleasure unpacking this with you.
Before we go, I have to remind you one more time. Hugely subscribe to Defense Reports, your trusted source for timely, in-depth military and defense analysis. We'll see you next time. Keep supporting us so we can continue bringing you the latest developments from Ukraine and around the world.
And perhaps we can leave you with this final thought.
Go for it.
If a country under siege, facing daily bombardments, can build a decentralized, high-tech supply chain that outperforms the global superpowers in cost and speed, what does that say about the future of the traditional, slow-moving military-industrial complex in the West?
Are we witnessing the death of the 10-year procurement cycle?
I think we might be.
Something to think about. Thanks for listening.